You're tuned in to Sinister Shadows, where forgotten broadcasts resurface, strange signals bleed through the static, and the stories don't always stay fiction. If you found this channel, it's not by accident. Something brought you here. So settle in, stay quiet, and listen closely. What you're about to hear might sound like a story, but some shadows speak the truth. It started with the garage light. Every night for the past 2 weeks, I'd catch it flickering from my kitchen window, a pale yellow bulb clinging to life, humming like a dying fly. My neighbor, Dave, was never a garage light left on kind of guy. In fact, Dave wasn't really much of a lights on at all guy, retired, grumpy, and obsessed with keeping his property perfect. He'd scowl if your trash can lid wasn't secure. He once gave me a lecture about my grass length while holding hedge clippers like a threat. But lately, no sign of him. Just that flickering garage light. I tried to ignore it. Honestly, I did. Until last night when I noticed something worse. The garage door was open. Not wide open. Just cracked. Like it had been pulled down halfway and stuck there, sagging at an angle, leaving a black yawning mouth in the middle of Dave's perfect suburban home. I stared at it for too long. My coffee went cold. My skin crawled the way it does when you realize something is watching you. The neighborhood kid said Dave was dead. Heart attack. Or maybe something worse. Rumors spread fast in small neighborhoods, especially about old guys with no family. But the official story? Nothing. No ambulance, no coroner's van. Just silence. And that open garage door. Tonight, something changed. Around midnight, I caught movement. Something inside the garage shifted. At first, I thought it was just shadows from the wind playing tricks, but there was no wind tonight. The air was thick, heavy like wet wool. I stepped onto my porch and squinted across the cul-de-sac. That's when I saw it. Something tall brushing against the opening. Too tall to be Dave. Too tall to be human. It had to duck to slip back inside. I went back inside and locked my doors. Now, you might think, call someone. Cops, animal control, someone who deals with weird things in garages. I thought about it, but something stopped me. Not fear exactly. Curiosity. The bad kind of curiosity, you know, is going to chew you up and spit you out, but you chase it anyway. By 1 a.m., I was standing in Dave's driveway. The light above the garage flickered violently, buzzing louder now, almost rhythmic like breathing. The garage door still hung crooked, the gap beneath it a dark grin daring me to look inside. I shouldn't have, but I stepped closer. Inside, it didn't look like a garage anymore. The floor wasn't concrete. It was stone. Black, wet stone. The air stank of salt and something metallic. The walls stretched upward into darkness, impossibly high, far beyond the ceiling a garage should have. The only thing that looked familiar was Dave's old red toolbox, sitting at the threshold like a forgotten offering. And there, just a few feet inside, was a door. Not a normal door. This one was massive, jagged at the edges like it had been ripped from bone instead of wood. Symbols crawled across its surface, shapes that made my head ache to look at. It pulsed. Actually pulsed, like it was alive and breathing slow, heavy breaths. From behind it, something moved. Something big. Something aware of me. I backed up fast, tripping over Dave's cracked driveway. My heart thudded so loud I swear it echoed off that monstrous door. Something pressed against the other side. A shape. A claw. Fingers? Tentacles? I couldn't tell. I didn't want to know. I bolted. Now I'm back in my house, all the lights on, curtains shut, doors locked twice. And I can still see it when I close my eyes. That door. That thing behind it. And worse, the garage door is opening more. Slowly, inch by inch. Like whatever's behind it is getting braver. Or hungrier. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I blinked, I pictured that door inside the garage. Not Dave's garage door. The other one. The one made of bone and rot, breathing like some sick animal. I kept telling myself I imagined it. That exhaustion and too much coffee had finally melted my brain. But no amount of logic could explain what I heard around 3 a.m. scratching. Something scratching metal. Slow, deliberate scrapes, as if testing the strength of the thin sheet of aluminum between this world and whatever waited on the other side. I made it until sunrise without screaming. Barely. By the time the sky went from purple to gray, I'd convinced myself I was going over there again. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. Whatever was coming through. It wasn't going to stop. I grabbed the only weapon I owned, a rusty crowbar from my shed. I don't know what I thought I was going to do with it. Poke the portal? Threaten it? Worst case, I figured I could use it to pry the garage door shut. Best case? Who am I kidding? There was no best case. The air outside smelled worse today, like something had died in the gutters and been left to stew. The garage door was now open, halfway. Enough for me to duck under without crawling. I thought about leaving right then, going back inside, maybe calling in an anonymous tip about a gas leak. But something inside pulled me forward. Curiosity again. That same stupid, self-destructive curiosity. I crouched and slipped beneath the door. Inside, the floor of stone stretched wider now, like the garage itself was swelling, expanding. The walls, if you could call them that, were no longer concrete. They were rough, uneven, slathered in moss and something slick and red. I stepped carefully, crowbar raised like a useless talisman. The door at the back stood wide open. Where there had been darkness, now there was something else. A corridor of flesh and bone, spiraling downward like the throat of a dead god. The air sucked at me, warm and wet, pulling my breath from my lungs. I heard sounds from below. Footsteps. Not human. Wet, dragging things. Clicks, hisses, voices whispering in languages that don't belong in this world. I should have run. Instead, I whispered, "Dave?" Something answered. Not words. Just laughter. Low, guttural, mocking. A shape moved in the dark. Pale limbs, too many of them. Joints bending the wrong way. A face like something unfinished. It didn't belong here. It didn't belong anywhere. I stepped back. My foot crunched something brittle and old. Bone. Maybe. Teeth? I didn't look down. That's when the thing spoke. He opened the door. Not a question. A fact. A sentence dropped from something's mouth like a rotting peach falling from a tree. "I'm closing it," I said. More laughter. Closer now. I felt breath on my neck, hot and sticky. Something moved just beyond sight, too fast to track, too big to believe. "You can't close it," the voice said. "You're too late. We're already coming through." I backed away fast, heart jackhammering, crowbar trembling in my grip. I reached the garage door and ducked out into daylight. For a moment, I thought I was safe. That sunlight would matter. It didn't, because something followed me. A black smear across the threshold. A stain, like ink leaking from a wound. It slithered under the garage door before it shut behind me with a groan of protest. It pooled in Dave's driveway, spreading like a shadow with no source. From it rose a shape, a man's shape. Dave's shape, but not Dave. Not anymore. His mouth stretched too wide, splitting at the corners, leaking smoke. His eyes weren't eyes, just pits of hungry dark. His fingers ended in claws that tapped against the concrete and thought. "You shouldn't have looked," he said. His voice sounded like knives dragged across glass. I stumbled back onto my lawn, nearly dropping the crowbar. "You shouldn't have looked," he said again, smile stretching wider, teeth sharpening. "But you did, and now we can see you, too." He melted back into the shadow like ink being sucked into a drain. I ran. I didn't look back. I slammed my door, locked it, barred it, shoved furniture against it like I was preparing for war. Because I was. Whatever's in Dave's garage. It knows I'm here now, and tonight it's coming through. I didn't leave the house the next day. Didn't even look outside. I sat at my kitchen table with the crowbar across my lap like some pathetic medieval knight with his sword, waiting for the dragon to kick in his front door. But nothing came. Not right away. By noon, the sun was burning through the curtains, and the neighborhood looked normal again. Lawn mowers buzzing, sprinklers ticking, birds hopping along power lines like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't seen a man-shaped shadow crawl out of Dave's garage and tell me it was too late. But something was wrong. I could feel it. The shadows in my house stretched too far into the corners. My reflection in the microwave glass didn't blink when I did. The clock ticked, but not in rhythm. Little things. Little cracks in reality spreading like spider webs. At 3:17 p.m., the power went out. Not just my house, the whole block. I peeked out the blinds. The neighbors were standing in their yards, confused, pointing at their houses, shaking their heads. Power lines intact, no storm, no trucks working the street, just silence. And Dave's garage door was fully open now, wide, like a mouth grinning straight at me. I saw movement inside, shapes, figures slithering and stretching, pressing against the edges of the opening like they were testing the air, deciding if it was safe to come further. They didn't care about sunlight. They didn't care about being seen. I realized then, they weren't just coming through. They were already here. Something knocked on my front door. Not a polite knock, not fists or hands. Something scraping, like claws dragging across wood. I didn't answer, of course I didn't, but it spoke anyway. We're already inside. I turned, slow, breath locked in my throat. In the living room, my TV, dead black from the outage, showed movement. Not a reflection. A scene. My house. My living room. But not exactly right. The furniture was wrong. The angles were off. And something was standing in the corner where the shadows pooled thickest. Watching me. It tilted its head, raised a hand with too many fingers, waved. I grabbed the remote out of habit, pressed power. Nothing happened, obviously. I unplugged it. The image stayed. Something behind the screen laughed. That's when the walls started to bleed. Thin trickles at first, leaking from corners, seams, the baseboards. Not blood, not exactly. Darker than blood. Thicker. Smelled like burnt hair and salt water. The house groaned like it was alive, like it didn't want me here anymore. I ran to the front door, crowbar ready. When I ripped it open, the street was gone. No sky, no neighbors, no sun. Just endless gray mist and shapes moving inside it. Huge shapes. Crawling, dragging themselves forward on limbs too long and too thin. Dave was standing at the edge of my porch, or what used to be Dave. His head lolled to the side, mouth split in a grin wide enough to show bone. His eyes were voids. His shadow stretched behind him, reaching for my feet. "You opened it," he said. "No," I whispered. "You did." He laughed. It sounded like something chewing glass. "Doesn't matter now. You belong to it too." I slammed the door, locked it. Pointless probably, but instinct dies hard. My house shifted around me. Rooms no longer connected right. The hallway led back to the kitchen. The stairs led down to the same room over and over again. Windows showed places I've never been, and things that shouldn't exist peered in from the other side. I found myself back in the living room without realizing I'd moved. The TV now showed the garage. Dave's garage. Wide open. The door inside pulsing. Bigger now, glowing from within like something monstrous was breathing behind it. And then, something crawled out of my TV. Not fast, not violent, slow, curious. Testing the world like a newborn insect. Limbs bent wrong, skin like oil and teeth like broken mirrors. It saw me. It smiled. "You can't hide anymore," it said. I swung the crowbar. It went through the thing like smoke. The thing giggled. "You're already inside too." I backed into a corner, clutching the crowbar like it meant something. Because I realized then, this wasn't about Dave. This wasn't about his garage. It was about me. It had always been about me. I don't know how long I stayed crouched in the corner, clutching that crowbar like it could save me. Time didn't feel real anymore. My clock on the wall spun its hands in slow, lazy circles like it had given up. My phone? Dead. My lights? Outside? My house? Breathing. Yeah. Breathing. The walls swelled with each inhale, shrank with each exhale. The floor beneath me pulsed like muscle. Every door in the house led to somewhere wrong, somewhere hungry. The thing crawling from my TV hadn't moved closer, not physically. But the room was shrinking, warping, bending itself toward it like gravity had picked a new center. You shouldn't have noticed, it said again. You shouldn't have seen. I squeezed the crowbar tighter. My knuckles ached. What do you want? It smiled with teeth it didn't have a second ago. You're asking the wrong question. The lights flickered on for half a second. Not from electricity, from something deeper. For that brief moment, my living room wasn't a living room anymore. It was a corridor of slick bone and black stone, stretching into a cavern without end. Hanging from the ceiling were things. Some still alive. Some twitching. Some watching me with lidless, sorrowful eyes. The thing in front of me leaned closer, head cocking sideways like a bird. The question isn't what we want. It pressed a hand against the wall. The drywall split open like skin beneath a scalpel, revealing more black stone, more writhing shapes behind it. It's what you've already given us. Behind it, a door formed, the same door from Dave's garage. Bigger now, breathing harder, symbols crawling across it like worms under glass. You think this is still your house? I ran, through the kitchen, down the hall, upstairs, only there wasn't an upstairs anymore. Just more hallway, looping, doubling back, stretching sideways. I slammed open a door and found myself in Dave's garage. Not the real one. Or maybe the real one had never existed. The door at the back hung open wider now, the world beyond it bleeding through in tendrils of mist and shadow. Shapes moved there, watching, waiting. You brought it here, something whispered from above. I didn't look up. I didn't want to see what was speaking. I tried to back out, tried to retrace my steps, found myself in my kitchen again. The fridge hung open, leaking teeth. The sink bled ink. My reflection in the toaster smiled at me. You're already through the door, it said in my voice. There's no going back. I stumbled backward into the living room, or what used to be the living room. And there he was. Dave. Or what wore his face now. Sitting in my recliner like he owned it. Smoke curling from his mouth, his eyes leaking darkness that bled down his cheeks in slow, deliberate rivulets. Told you not to look, he said. You didn't tell me anything. Didn't have to. You looked anyway. The thing from the TV was sitting beside him now, grinning, waving. Their shadows merged together, stretching toward me, pulling up the floor like roots tearing through rotten earth. What is this? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. Your future, Dave said. Your home. Your hell. Call it what you want. He pointed behind me. I turned. The door. The real one. Massive now. Reaching the ceiling, its symbols burning red, bleeding smoke. Something pushed against it from the other side. Something huge. I could hear it breathing, hear its claws scraping, its mouth opening. I could hear my name. It's almost through, Dave said, smiling wide. And thanks to you, it knows where to start. The door split at the center. I caught a glimpse of teeth, of eyes, of a world that shouldn't exist screaming in hunger, pressing through the cracks of my reality like water through a rotted dam. And behind it all, something was laughing. I don't know how I made it out of the house. I remember doors that shouldn't have existed, hallways looping back on themselves like tangled intestines, the walls growing mouths, Small at first, then larger, yawning wide to reveal rows of teeth and dark throats that swallowed light. I smashed one with the crowbar. It laughed at me. By the time I stumbled onto my lawn, the world had changed. Dave's house was gone. Not collapsed, not burnt down, just gone, like it had been swallowed whole. In its place was that door, the portal, now fully open. Black stone spiraled outward from it, cracking the pavement like veins. The sky above churned with clouds that didn't belong to this world. Red lightning flickered in patterns, tracing symbols I couldn't understand but somehow recognized from the door itself. And from the doorway, things crawled through, not fast, not eager, patient, curious, like explorers testing the air of a new planet. Some walked on too many legs. Some dragged themselves by claws. Some floated, dragging pieces of Dave's house like souvenirs. All of them stared at me. Some smiled. Behind them, deeper in the doorway, something larger moved. Something the others made room for. Something whose eyes hadn't opened yet, but would. Soon. "You shouldn't have looked," Dave said again. His voice wasn't behind me anymore. It was everywhere. In the clouds, in the cracks, in the roots tearing through my driveway. "You looked. You listened. You followed it home." I stumbled back toward my house, or what was left of it. My porch sagged into the black veins spreading across the yard. My front door hung open like a jaw. Inside, shapes moved where furniture used to be. Shadows flickered, watching me with teeth. I heard my TV again. Static, whispering, laughter threading through it. "We were always here. You just stopped pretending not to notice." My reflection in the broken window smiled. It wasn't my face anymore. "Come inside," it said. "It's safer here. For now." I didn't have a choice. I stepped back inside my house. The door closed on its own. The lights flickered on me. Not yellow, but red. Like the sky outside. Like the symbols crawling across the walls now. My living room had become a mouth again. My kitchen, a throat. My stairs, a ribcage. And at the center of it all, Dave. Or what was left of him. He sat in my recliner, arms stretched too long, fingers tangled in the roots of the house. His smile reached from ear to ear now, splitting open to show rows of teeth like sharks. His eyes were voids. His shadow swallowed the floor. "You can't fight it," he said. "You're part of it. You've been part of it since you noticed the door." The door inside my living room pulsed again. Bigger now, breathing heavier. Something behind it pressed forward, slow, deliberate. "You're going to help it through," Dave said. "No," I said. "I'm not like you." He laughed. The house laughed with him. The walls trembled. "You already are." From the ceiling, something dropped. A mouth, a hand, a limb I couldn't name. It wrapped around my crowbar and pulled it from my grip like it was taking back something that belonged to it. "You don't need weapons," Dave said. "You need to open wider." The door split further. Through the cracks, I saw teeth. I saw endless black. I saw myself standing inside, waving, smiling, welcoming me home. "You were always meant for this," Dave said. The house trembled again. Roots tore through the floor, wrapping my ankles. I didn't fight them. Not really. Not anymore. I just stared at that door. At what waited. At what was already slipping through. Because somewhere deep inside, I recognized it. And it recognized me. The roots wrapped tighter, pulling me toward the door. Not fast. Not violent. Just steady. Like the tide pulling in something that had been drifting too long. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. Not because I didn't want to. Because I finally understood. This was always going to happen. I'd been marked the moment I noticed the light in Dave's garage. The moment I wondered what was inside. The moment I looked too long. That curiosity had cracked something open. And now the thing inside had followed the crack straight into me. "You're starting to see it, aren't you?" Dave said from his throne of roots and shadows. His smile stretched wider now, splitting skin, revealing teeth beneath teeth. Starting to remember. Remember? The door pulsed. Something behind it breathed my name, not out loud. Inside my head, inside my bones. I remembered a dream. Not one I'd had last night, but one from years ago. A door in the dark, a voice behind it. A promise whispered in exchange for something I didn't understand. I was a kid. I was scared. I said yes. And now the door had come to collect. You left it open, Dave said, voice slipping between syllables like something sliding through cracks. It followed you home. The roots pulled harder. My feet left the floor. My walls folded in on themselves, becoming teeth and tongue, guiding me toward that door like a throat preparing to swallow. You belong with us, the thing behind the door said. I reached out, fingers trembling, brushing the surface of the door. It wasn't wood. It wasn't stone. It was skin. It was bone. It was alive. It recognized me. The door opened wider, and through it I saw myself. Not me now. Me then. Younger. Standing in a garage that wasn't Dave's but somehow was. Staring at a door that wasn't there but somehow had always been. The younger me smiled. The door opened behind him. A shadow wrapped around his shoulders like a parent pulling their child home. You said yes, Dave whispered. And now it's your turn to hold the door. The roots pulled me through teeth, through bone, through shadow. On the other side there was no sky, no ground, just endless corridors of flesh and stone, lined with doors. Some open, some sealed, some breathing slow, heavy breaths. Things moved between them. Things watched. Things waited. And in the center of it all, something vast slept beneath the stone. Something wrapped in roots and hunger, dreaming of doors and open mouths. It opened an eye. It saw me. Welcome home. The words weren't spoken. They were given, placed inside me like a key in a lock. And I smiled. Because now I understood. Someone has to hold the door open. Someone has to let the things through. Dave had done his time. Now it was mine. The roots pulled me to a new threshold, a new garage, a new house, somewhere far away where no one would notice the flickering light at first. Not until they got curious. Not until they wondered what was inside. Not until they looked too long. The house I woke up in wasn't mine. It looked like it at first glance, like same chipped mailbox, same faded siding, same creaky porch swing that never sat right. But it wasn't. Not really. Not anymore. Not since I'd been pulled through. Some things stayed behind in that old house. My name, my face in photographs, my memories smeared across furniture and bedsheets like oil stains. But the real me? I was here now. Wherever here was. This house is waiting for its first neighbor. The garage light flickers every night, same sick yellow glow, same broken hum. The door hangs open just enough to let the dark bleed through. Sometimes I hear them moving behind it. Sometimes I see their shadows slither across the floor. Sometimes they reach out, testing the air for signs of weakness. They're patient. They've learned to wait, because someone always comes. A delivery driver. A kid looking for a shortcut. A neighbor curious about a light left on too long. They'll wander close, peer into the dark, wonder where the homeowner went. Wonder what's making that sound. Wonder what's waiting just beyond the threshold. And when they do, the door will open. That's my job now. I am the door. Dave wasn't lying when he said it needed someone on this side to keep things moving. I understand him now in ways I couldn't before. The hunger, the weight, the endless pull of the black stone and roots threading through worlds like veins, through rotting flesh. I watch the neighborhood change around me. The sky here is wrong. Too red, too deep. Clouds swirl in slow, deliberate circles, tracing symbols only the things below understand. Shadows linger in places. Shadows don't belong. Faces press against the windows at night, grinning without mouths. Sometimes I sit on the porch swing and wave. Sometimes I see Dave across the street, smiling from a house that looks a little too much like mine. Sometimes I wonder how many of us there are now. How many houses, how many garages left cracked open just wide enough to let the dark inside. It doesn't matter. Someone always comes. I hear them tonight. Footsteps crunching gravel, voices whispering just beyond my porch light. A laugh cut short by confusion. A hand pushing open a garage door they shouldn't touch. Soon, they'll see the door. Soon, they'll hear the breathing. Soon they'll understand what I did. The door doesn't close. Not really. It just waits for the next person to wonder what's inside. And when they do, we'll be here.